You guys went absolutely crazy over my last video about those under $10 CPUs, and honestly, I don't blame you. They're cheap, they're fun, and somehow they punch way above their price tag. But here's the twist. When something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. So today, we're digging into the real story behind these ultra-budget processors. The good, the bad, and the you might want to stay away from that one. And of course, we'll see if these tiny chips can actually survive Minecraft, because that's where every cheap CPU meets its final boss. In this video, I'm going to switch things up a bit. I've added a new CPU that I think has a lot of potential and could actually be super useful for you guys. Now, you might be wondering, why Minecraft? Well, because it's one of the most CPU-hungry games out there, especially the Java edition. Unlike most games with fixed maps, Minecraft constantly generates and loads new chunks, calculates lighting, shadows, and all those tiny details. And guess what? The CPU is the one doing all the heavy lifting. So if a processor can survive Minecraft, it can probably handle just about anything else you throw at it. After my last video, a lot of you had mixed opinions about these CPUs. Some people just aren't into old Xeons anymore, and honestly, I get why. They were never built for gaming in the first place, they lack newer instruction sets, and they can struggle with modern titles. Plus, finding a compatible motherboard can be pretty expensive. But don't worry. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the best possible fixes and upgrades for each CPU so you can still get the most out of them. I'm going with two 8GB sticks of RAM, 16GB total running in dual channel, and a GTX 1060 3GB. Of course, I'm not planning to push this GPU too hard. Our first contender is the Xeon E5-1620V4. Let's check out the specs. It's got 4 cores, 8 threads, running at 3.5 GHz with a max turbo of 3.8 GHz. Now, the biggest complaints people have about this CPU, it's power hungry and runs hot. The kind of heat that'll make your electricity bill regret your choices. You'll definitely need a decent cooler to keep it under control. Another issue is the LGA 2011 socket, which means compatible motherboards don't come cheap. But here's a little trick. You can grab an OEM board from China for around $30 on AliExpress. That's what I'm using today, and we'll see just how well this setup can actually game. You can see our multi-core monster here pulling around 2,196 points in the CPU-Z multi-thread test, a number that even some modern chips would dream of hitting. Single-core performance lands at about 416 points, which honestly isn't bad at all for something this old. Alright, let's skip the talk and jump straight into some real-world testing, starting with Minecraft on the lowest settings on just 2 chunks. There's not much stress on the CPU, and the FPS hits a crazy 600 frames per second. Of course, nobody actually plays like this since you can barely see anything beyond your nose. Bumping it up to 32 chunks, FPS drops to around 110, and when I start walking through the forest, it climbs a bit to 140. Still super playable. No stutters, no lag. Now, switching everything to fabulous graphics, FPS only dips slightly, averaging around 100 FPS, while CPU usage rises to about 90%. But here's the best part. Power draw is just 52 watts, and temps stay cool at around 45 degrees Celsius. Honestly, this real-world performance is way better than I expected. Not bad at all for a decade-old chip. Next up, we've got the E5-2630V3, a CPU that costs, get this, around $5. And for that price, you're getting 8 cores and 16 threads. Sounds insane, right? But here's the catch. Its base clock is only 2.4 GHz, and it can turbo up to 3.2 GHz at best. On paper, its multi-core score is about 500 points higher than the last CPU, but it actually falls about 100 points behind in single-core performance. So how does that translate to real-world gaming? Let's find out. At the lowest Minecraft settings, just 2 chunks, FPS hits around 400, which is about 200 frames lower than the previous CPU. Cranking it up to 32 chunks, performance drops to about 60 FPS when flying high above the map, and hovers around 100 FPS when walking through forests. Switching to fabulous graphics, FPS doesn't take too big of a hit, but overall stability isn't quite as good. 1% lows are roughly 10 frames lower than before. If you turn on shaders though, this CPU really starts to sweat. You'll probably be looking at a 30 FPS experience. Still playable, but definitely pushing it. Next up, we've got the E5-1650V2, a 6-core, 12-thread chip running at 3.5 GHz base and boosting up to 3.9 GHz. Performance-wise, it's about 26% faster than our first CPU, but here's the trade-off. This thing drinks power like a thirsty gamer at a LAN party. It can pull up to 130 watts, which isn't exactly friendly to your electric bill. It also only supports DDR3 memory, which can bottleneck performance if you're into high-speed gaming. On the benchmarks, it scores about 2,487 points in multi-core and around 350 points in single-core, slightly higher than the older Xeons. Jumping into Minecraft at the lowest settings, FPS peaks around 400, with averages hovering just above 300. The 1% lows are about 15 frames higher than the E52630 V3, meaning it's a lot more stable even if the overall FPS isn't higher. At 32 chunks, performance dips to about 70 to 80 FPS, still perfectly playable and above the golden 60. The main concern here is heat and power draw. Temps reach roughly 80 degrees Celsius, and consumption climbs past 70 watts, the highest among all CPUs tested so far. When stress testing with TNT explosions, FPS dropped by about 10 frames, but honestly that's still impressive for such a chaotic scene. Now stepping up to the next level, the E52667 V3. This beast packs 8 cores and 16 threads, running between 3.2 and 3.6 GHz. Aside from being a little power hungry, it's got a big advantage. Despite being a V3 Xeon, it actually supports DDR4 memory, giving it a noticeable edge over older DDR3 systems. Now, let's see if those numbers actually mean anything in real-world gaming tests. At the lowest render distance, FPS stayed rock solid around 500 FPS, smooth as butter. When I cranked it up to 32 chunks, it dropped to roughly 150 FPS, but still comfortably sat in the triple digits the entire time. Even during the TNT explosion test, which usually wrecks performance, it held its ground impressively, dipping only to about 67 frames per second at the lowest point. For a CPU that costs under $10, this thing is an absolute monster in its price range. Next, we're switching over to a completely different socket, LG A1150, and our star this time is the E31241 V3, a CPU that should sound pretty familiar if you've been following the channel. Now for the fun part, performance. At the lowest settings, it totally surprised me by hitting over 600 FPS across almost every situation. When I cranked it up to 32 chunks and switched the graphics to fabulous, FPS dropped to around 150 while wandering through forests, and still managed 300 plus FPS when placing blocks. Even during the TNT explosion test, the true stress moment, FPS held steady around 50, without any painful drops that ruined gameplay. However, while the average FPS is impressive, the 1% low sits around 10 FPS, which means occasional stutters can still happen. So yeah, raw performance is great, but if you're after a buttery smooth experience, stability is just as important. Now here's a CPU I really wanted to add to this list. Another Xeon, but a much newer one. The E31220 V6, part of Intel's Kaby Lake lineup. It's got pretty modest specs on paper. 4 cores, 4 threads, running at 3.0 GHz base and boosting up to 3.5 GHz. You can easily find this chip for around $8 to $9, which is kind of insane for what it offers. In benchmarks, it scores about 1,471 points in multi-core. Not a big number compared to those beefy 8-core Xeons. But the single-core score hits 393, just slightly below the E31241 V3. That's where this thing really shines. Jumping into the real-world test, at low settings it pulls off an impressive 600 FPS, and even when I bump it up to 32 chunks, FPS drops to around 150, which is very close to what we saw with the 1241 V3. But here's the interesting part. The 1% low FPS is about 40 frames higher, meaning the gameplay feels a lot smoother and more stable overall. Oh, and the best part? It runs cool and sips power, and this thing barely gets warm even under load. After all those benchmarks, I think it's safe to say, cheap CPUs can still pack a serious punch if you pick the right one. For pure gaming, the E52667 V3 is a total powerhouse, and if you're running an LG A1150 setup, the E31241 V3 gives insane value for the price. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more budget PC fun.